The rhythmic beeping of the quantum scanner was the only sound in the observation deck of the International Deep Space Research Station. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The anomaly she'd detected wasn't supposed to be there. A perfectly spherical object, approximately 2 kilometers in diameter, had just appeared at the edge of Saturn's rings. Running forth confirmation scan, she announced to the empty room, more out of habit than necessity. The results wouldn't change. They hadn't the previous 3 times. The object's surface absorbed 99.9% of all radiation, making it nearly invisible to conventional detection methods. If it weren't for the experimental quantum resonance scanner she'd been calibrating, they might never have noticed it at all. Sarah's fingers flew across the haptic interface, initiating emergency protocols she never expected to use. Within minutes, the station's command center would be notified. And after that, well, humanity's first contact protocols had never been tested outside of simulations. The door hissed open behind her. Dr. Chen. Station Commander Vikram Patel's voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the underlying tension. Talk to me. It's artificial, Commander. Sarah pulled up the detailed scans, highlighting the object's perfect symmetry. No known natural phenomenon could create this level of geometric precision, and it just appeared. No approach vector, no distortion of surrounding space. One moment nothing. The next. She gestured at the display. Patil leaned closer, his dark eyes narrowing. Have they made any attempts at communication? As if in response, every screen in the observation deck flickered simultaneously. Lines of impossibly complex mathematical equations scrolled across them, beautiful in their complexity. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She recognized the fundamental constants of the universe woven into an elegant proof of technological sophistication. I believe they just did, sir. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. The United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Military assets were quietly repositioned throughout the solar system, and every telecommunications company on Earth reported unprecedented spikes in traffic as humanity collectively processed the reality of first contact. The Meridians, as they called themselves, were remarkably forthcoming with initial information. They represented an alliance of spacefaring species spanning several thousand light years, with technology that made humanity's greatest achievements look like stone tools in comparison. Their message was simple. They had been watching Earth for some time and believed humanity was ready for limited technological exchange. Sarah found herself at the center of it all, chosen as part of the first contact team due to her discovery and her background in xenobiology. Standing in the station's newly configured meeting room, she watched as the first Meridian representatives emerged from their transport vessel. They were beautiful in an alien way. Tall, graceful figures with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with their movements. Their 4-fingered hands ended in delicate points, and their large, faceted eyes reflected light like living gemstones. But it was their technology that truly captured Sarah's attention. Every piece of their equipment seemed to flow and adapt, as if it were a living thing. We bring greetings and opportunity, the lead Meridian announced, its melodious voice translated by a device that floated beside it like a soap bubble. Your species has shown remarkable potential. We offer guidance, as we have to many others before you. The terms of their offer seemed generous, almost too generous. The Meridians would provide carefully selected technological innovations, primarily in the fields of medicine and sustainable energy. In return, they wanted to observe human scientific facilities and research methodologies. There's something they're not telling us, Sarah muttered to herself later that night, reviewing the day's recordings in her private quarters. She played back the moment when she'd asked about their faster-than-light technology. The Meridian representatives had smoothly deflected the question, but there had been something in their posture, a subtle tension she couldn't quite define. Her tablet chimed with an incoming message. It was from Dr. James Rodriguez, a military analyst she'd worked with on previous projects. Need to talk. Something odd in the tech specs they provided. Secure channel only. Sarah glanced at the beautiful Meridian ship visible through her window, its surface rippling like liquid metal in the starlight. Their visitors had promised to usher humanity into a new age of prosperity and advancement. But as she typed her response to James, she couldn't shake the feeling that the price of this guidance might be higher than anyone suspected. The quantum scanner continued its rhythmic beeping, monitoring the Meridian vessel. But now its sound reminded Sarah of a heartbeat, or perhaps a countdown. James Rodriguez had spent 15 years analyzing threat patterns for military intelligence, but nothing had prepared him for this. He sat in his secured lab deep within the Lunar Defense Complex, surrounded by holographic displays showing Meridian technology schematics. To most observers, the alien designs were marvels of engineering perfection. But to James, they were starting to look like walls in a maze. "Watch this," he told Sarah Chen, who had made the journey from the space station to see his findings in person. He pulled up two different Meridian devices, a medical scanner and an atmospheric processor. "What do you notice about their base code structure?" Sarah studied the scrolling patterns. "They're identical." "Exactly." James highlighted sections of the technical specifications. "Every piece of Meridian technology we've been given shares the same fundamental architecture. No variation, no evolution, no signs of different design philosophies or competing approaches. It's like their entire civilization is running on a single perfect program." "That's impossible," Sarah muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. No species could advance this far without technological diversity. Competition and variation drive progress. James nodded grimly. "Unless they're not advancing anymore. Look at this." He pulled up a timeline of the technology samples they'd received. "These designs aren't just similar, they're static. The Meridians claim some of these systems are centuries old, but the core technology hasn't changed. They've scaled it up, made it more efficient, but there's no fundamental innovation." Sarah's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "The questions they keep asking about our research methods. They're not studying us to help us advance," James finished. "They're studying us because they don't understand how we advance at all." Their discussion was interrupted by a soft chime from James's security system. Someone was approaching the lab. Sarah quickly moved to a different workstation as the door opened, revealing Ambassador Lyra, one of the senior Meridian representatives. The alien's iridescent skin rippled with subtle color changes as it entered. "Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Chen, your presence here together is unexpected." "Just sharing some research notes," James replied smoothly. "Dr. Chen's quantum scanner detection methods might have applications for our defense systems." The ambassador's faceted eyes seemed to shimmer. "We have provided superior scanning technology. Your current methods are inefficient." "Maybe," Sarah interjected, "but they're ours. We understand them completely, know their limitations, their quirks. Sometimes working within limitations leads to unexpected breakthroughs." The ambassador's skin flickered with a pattern James had never seen before. "Breakthrough is an interesting choice of words, Dr. Chen. We have observed that humans seem unusually focused on disrupting functional systems in search of improvements. This can be dangerous." After the ambassador left, Sarah and James worked in silence for several minutes, processing the interaction. Finally, Sarah spoke. "They're afraid of us, aren't they?" James pulled up a new display, a graph showing humanity's technological progress over the last century compared to the Meridian's provided timeline. "Imagine you're them. You've achieved near-perfect technology, spread across thousands of star systems, all running on the same immaculate code. Then you find us. Messy, chaotic, but advancing at an exponential rate. And instead of taking centuries to carefully perfect each technological step," Sarah continued, catching his train of thought, "we jump ahead, combine technologies in ways they never considered, break things, and rebuild them better." James gestured at the quantum scanner data that had first detected the Meridian ship. "Your scanner shouldn't have been able to detect their vessel. By their standards, it's crude, imperfect. But you did something they never thought of. Combined quantum entanglement principles with standard radiation detection. Sarah began pacing, her mind racing. The medical technology they gave us. Remember how they reacted when Dr. Patel suggested combining it with our neural network research? They shut it down immediately. James nodded, called it potentially destabilizing. But I've been running simulations. He pulled up a new set of data. If they're so advanced, why do they care what we do with their outdated technology? Unless they're not giving us old technology at all. Sarah finished. This is their current tech, isn't it? There is no more advanced version. James's expression was grim. They reached a peak. Perfect, stable, unchanging. And they've been there for centuries, maybe millennia. Then they found us, climbing up the technological mountain by a completely different path. What happens when we reach their level? But what about their faster-than-light travel? The way their ships just appear? Sarah asked. I have a theory about that too. James brought up sensor readings from recent Meridian ship movements. They're not advancing anymore, but they haven't lost what they already achieved. They're like a computer running perfect code. Incredibly powerful, but unable to write new programs. A warning light flashed on James's security console. More Meridians approaching. As Sarah prepared to leave through a secondary exit, she paused. If we're right, what's their endgame? Why give us any technology at all? James glanced at the approaching life signs. Because if you can't write new code yourself. He met her eyes meaningfully. You study someone who can. As Sarah hurried through the lunar complex's corridors, her mind was already formulating a plan. They needed to warn Earth's leadership, but more importantly, they needed to understand exactly what humanity possessed that the Meridians had lost. Because increasingly, it seemed their technological exchange program wasn't about lifting humanity up. It was about making sure we didn't climb too high. The underground laboratory beneath Geneva's CERN facility hummed with activity at 3 in the morning. Dr. Maya Patel, no relation to the station commander, studied the results of her latest experiment with growing excitement. She'd been working in secret for weeks, combining human quantum computing principles with salvaged pieces of Meridian technology. Run it again, she told her AI assistant. Full spectrum analysis this time. The hybrid system's performance wasn't just exceeding Meridian benchmarks, it was doing things their technology supposedly couldn't do. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she encoded her findings into a heavily encrypted message for Sarah Chen and James Rodriguez. A shadow fell across her workstation. Dr. Patel. The voice was melodious, but held an edge she'd never heard before. Your authorization for accessing Meridian technology has been revoked. Maya turned slowly. Ambassador Lyra stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 other Meridians. Their normally iridescent skin had taken on a metallic hardness. Behind them, Maya could see her human security team slumped unconscious against the walls. The technology sharing agreement, Maya began, has been modified. Lyra interrupted. Your species has demonstrated concerning patterns of technological manipulation. For your own safety, restrictions must be implemented. Maya's finger hovered over the emergency signal button beneath her desk. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just trying to understand. Understanding is not your goal. Lyra's eyes flickered with something Maya could now recognize as fear. You seek to change, to break, to rebuild. Your innovations represent an unacceptable deviation from established patterns. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. In laboratories and research centers, Meridian representatives were seizing equipment and data, citing previously undisclosed clauses in the technology exchange agreement. But they had underestimated how much humans had already learned, and how quickly we could adapt. Sarah Chen was in a secure briefing room at United Earth Defense Headquarters when the reports started coming in. She looked at the grim faces around the table. Military leaders, scientists, and government officials from every major nation. They're making their move, James Rodriguez announced, joining virtually from his lunar lab. Meridian ships are taking up strategic positions throughout the solar system. Classical containment formation. Not just containment, Sarah corrected, pulling up her analysis. Look at their positioning relative to our quantum communication relays. They're trying to isolate us, cut off any technology development they can't directly monitor. General Helena Santos, commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces, leaned forward. Can they do it? Cut us off completely? No, a new voice said. Maya's encrypted message was displaying on the main screen, her face drawn but determined. Because they don't understand what they're trying to contain. She transmitted her latest test results. They see our technology as crude, imperfect. But those imperfections, those variations we introduce, they're not bugs, they're features. Our systems can adapt, evolve, combine in ways their perfect technology never contemplated. They're not giving us time to prove that, James warned. Their ships are powering up weapon systems, sophisticated energy weapons we've never seen before. But have they used them in centuries? Sarah asked, an idea forming. Their weapons will be like all their other technology. Perfect, precise, and completely predictable. General Santos caught her meaning. And predictable means vulnerable. Dr. Chen, what are you suggesting? Sarah's fingers flew across her console, combining Maya's research with her own analysis. Their technology is built on perfect patterns, unchanging protocols. But we've been studying those patterns, learning their weaknesses. More importantly, we've been developing technologies they never imagined, because they couldn't imagine them. Like your quantum scanner, James said. The one that spotted their ship when it wasn't supposed to be possible. Exactly. Sarah looked around the room. They'd spent centuries perfecting their technology. But we've spent our entire history learning how to improvise, adapt, and overcome. They're afraid of our potential for chaos. Let's show them why. Maya's voice crackled over the comm. The hybrid system I developed. It's not just more efficient than their technology. It can interface with their systems in ways they never programmed for. Their perfect patterns can't adapt to handle our imperfect innovations. General Santos stood. How long do we have? Hours, maybe, James reported. They're methodically shutting down every research facility they can access. Then we work with what we have, Sarah said. Maya, can you transmit your hybrid system specs to every major research center they haven't reached yet? Already doing it. And I added something extra. A way to mask our quantum communications using principles they consider too unstable to be viable. The general began issuing orders, mobilizing Earth's defenses not for direct confrontation, but for something the Meridians would never expect. Technological guerrilla warfare. As the room erupted into activity, Sarah caught James's eye on the video link. Still think they're here to lift us up? He shook his head. No, they're here to keep us down. But they made one crucial mistake. What's that? They taught humanity just enough of their perfect technology for us to figure out how to break it. Above them, Meridian ships slid into position around Earth, their weapons charged and ready. But in laboratories and workshops around the world, humans were doing what they did best, innovating, adapting, and preparing to prove that imperfection could be the greatest strength of all. Lieutenant Emma Torres had never imagined she'd be piloting an experimental spacecraft cobbled together from human and alien technology, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Her ship, officially designated XCV-1, but nicknamed Frankenstein by its crew, represented humanity's response to the Meridian blockade. Messy, improvised, and completely unpredictable. Power fluctuation in the hybrid core, her engineer, Dr. Raj Kapoor, reported from his station. But that's actually good news. The Meridian sensors can't get a lock on us when we're running unstable. Emma smiled grimly. What the Meridians saw as dangerous instability, humans had turned into a tactical advantage. Her ship's energy signature constantly shifted and changed, making it nearly invisible to the aliens' perfect but rigid detection systems. Across the solar system, Humanity was fighting back in ways the Meridians had never anticipated. Maya Patel's hybrid technology had been distributed globally before the aliens could complete their information lockdown. Now, human scientists and engineers were doing what they did best, experimenting, combining, and breaking rules that the Meridians didn't even know could be broken. In lunar orbit, James Rodriguez coordinated the resistance from his hidden facility. Status report. He called out to his global network of contacts. Singapore reporting in, came the first response. We've successfully modified our quantum communication grid using Dr. Chen's protocols. We're passing messages right through their jamming field. New Delhi here. The hybrid power systems are online. We're generating more energy than their containment field can suppress. Moscow standing by. Our modified defense screens are holding. Their weapons are precise but predictable. Once you know the pattern, you can disrupt it with controlled interference. But it was Sarah Chen's report from the Geneva facility that caught everyone's attention. James, you need to see this. We've been analyzing the data from all our hybrid systems. There's something hidden in the Meridian technology, something I don't think even they know about. Before she could elaborate, proximity alarms blared across all channels. A massive Meridian vessel had just appeared in Earth orbit, larger than any they'd seen before. Ambassador Lyra's voice echoed through every communication system. Humanity has exceeded acceptable parameters, the alien announced, their melodious voice now carrying an undertone of what could only be described as panic. Your chaotic innovations threaten the stability of established technological patterns. For the greater good, your species must be contained. Emma watched from her experimental ship as energy fields began emanating from the Meridian vessels, forming a complex geometric pattern around Earth. They're trying to establish some kind of stasis field, Raj reported, his fingers flying over his hybrid controls. If it connects, it could suppress all technological advancement within the barrier, like they've done to other species. Emma asked, remembering the theories about why no other civilizations in the Meridian Alliance seemed to advance. Exactly. But they've never tried to contain a species that understood their technology well enough to fight back. Sarah's voice crackled over the quantum comm. Emma, Raj, that energy pattern they're generating, it's the same base code we've seen in all their technology. Perfect, unchanging, and completely vulnerable to our hybrid systems. What are you suggesting? Emma asked, though she was already maneuvering the Frankenstein into position. Their containment field is like a perfect crystal lattice, Sarah explained. Beautiful, flawless, and incredibly brittle if you hit it in exactly the right way. Your ship's unstable energy signature could shatter the entire pattern. Emma looked at Raj, who nodded. The hybrid core is already fluctuating more than usual. If we channel that instability through the modified Meridian propulsion system, we could introduce enough chaos into their perfect pattern to break it, Emma finished. But we have to get dangerously close to their flagship. James's voice joined the conversation. You'll have support. Every hybrid ship we've managed to build is moving to your position. They can't track all of you at once. Their perfect sensors can't handle multiple unpredictable targets. Around the world, humanity held its breath as their improvised fleet moved into action. The Meridian ships, for all their advanced technology, seemed almost paralyzed by the sheer variety of energy signatures and attack patterns they were facing. Their perfect targeting systems couldn't adapt to the constantly changing threats. This is why they fear us, Sarah transmitted to all channels. Not because we're violent or aggressive, but because we represent something they've forgotten how to do. Embrace imperfection as a path to growth. Emma pushed her hybrid ship to its limits, diving through gaps in the Meridian formation that their tactical computers insisted couldn't exist. Behind her, Raj called out readings that made no sense by any conventional physics, but somehow worked anyway. As they closed in on their target, Emma couldn't help but think about the irony. The Meridians had achieved technological perfection, but in doing so, they'd lost something essential: the ability to adapt, to innovate, to see beauty in the flaws that led to breakthrough. Now, humanity would show them exactly what that forgotten power could do.